I have three brothers. I am the only girl and the baby one in the family. As I was growing up, I was actually only growing up with two brothers, only, not three, but two. But as the years were just going past, and I was just probably like a toddler, getting a little bit older, probably like toddler to like 10 years old, 13, somewhere around there, I started to realize that I do have another brother. He actually is not full-blooded. He's my half-brother. He came from my dad's side. So basically my dad has 4 children and my mom has 3 children. I found out that I had a half-brother when my parents kept giving me the phone to me. So it was like, it's your brother. You say, hey, talk to him for a little bit. And at first I thought it was a little weird, I don't really have any connection to him. I don't know him personally. I never seen him in my life. But I started to realize, like, wow, I really do have another brother. And it was kind of crazy and everything. I never met him when I was young. I met him when I was 10 years old, when he came to the house and surprised us. But my older brother, and I think my second oldest brother, met him or grew up with him for a little bit. The second one, I'm not sure and all that, but I know the older one for a fact, they did grow up just a little bit. My half brother was actually taking care of the older brother and stuff, like babysitting and everything, so they had like a little bit more of a connection than me and the middle child. So moving on, the whole story was a little crazy, especially on how we all came together and how everything happened. But my half brother, he had a very different life from me and my other two brothers. And the reason I say that is because he grew up basically by himself. He had to raise himself. He had to teach himself everything, make the right or wrong choices. He didn't know. He didn't have anyone to look up to like we did. He wasn't raised properly or anything like that, because his mom actually has like this mental problem in her head. I don't really know what to explain it, on how to explain it. Actually, it's kind of weird. My dad just told me like she has a lot of issues in her head, like she goes a little crazy. And I found out about that when I actually ended up meeting her in person, probably about 3-4 years ago. So it explains why he has such a difficult life. My dad personally wanted to take custody over him, but with how crazy the mom was, it was so hard. So my dad ended up taking him from her. So he did grew up in North Carolina with us for a little bit until the mom found him and took him back. As he was growing up, he went from state to state, and I'm not sure why. I think living wise, it was really hard on him and his mom. He went from California to North Carolina to Atlanta to Milwaukee and things like that. And I think he lived in about each place for at least like a year or two, maybe shorter, maybe longer, depending on wherever he was at. But I know in Atlanta he had a very difficult life, and that's actually where he almost lost his life, hanging around I think they were living in a really bad area, and he was around a lot of bad people, like a lot of gang members and all that, where too much shooting going on and almost getting killed. So he told his mom that he had to get out of there, and so they did. They moved to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. That's actually where he's currently staying at. And he was going to high school there. He was still a teenager when he was going through all this stuff. So he ended up going to Milwaukee and building his life there. He finished high school and all that. And when he was in high school, he had a high school sweetheart. Couple years later, they actually ended up dating. And what's funny was that her side of the family did not like him. It's kind of funny, but she had a choice to make, and it was either, even though her family didn't like him, she had the choice to make, which was to live at home and try to find someone better for her that her parents might approve, or live with my brother, even though that she knows that he's struggling with life. he didn't have anything with him. He didn't have like a lot of money. He didn't have a good job. He didn't have a place to stay. Any of that. Like, he had it so hard. But she made the decision to move with my brother and struggle with him. So they didn't have enough money to actually move into an apartment or get a nice place to stay. So they were actually living in churches. He was sleeping in churches, eating over there with just all these other people, and they just felt so uncomfortable. And then after they were done living there, I guess they ended up somehow finding a job later on, and they ended up getting a decent apartment. Not really decent, it was actually really, really bad, but it was good enough for them to start somewhere. You have to start somewhere. And then later they were just, walking to work, taking a bus. Then after working for a while, they ended up getting a car. Was it a good car? No, of course not. It was a pretty old car, torn up a lot. Later, a couple years later, it was funny because the car ended up having a little hole through the ground, so when you drive you can see the road. Kind of scary, but he drove it anyway, got him from point A to point B. But moving on, after they were working for so long and hustling for a while together, they actually ended up buying a house. I want to say in about 3 years later, they ended up buying a house, and they were able to get more cars and all that. And that's only because the girlfriend was still in school, so she was learning. She ended up getting a really good job. He found a job at a casino. He did a lot of research on the side, trying to find a way to make a living, trying to find a way to get a decent job, side hustles and all that. And it worked. With all that, he ended up becoming so successful with his life. Like, from where he was, it's like from rock bottom, and now he's like up here. And every time he told us this story about probably 3 years ago, I was 18, so I was pretty old enough to hear about all of this. He was just telling us like how his life was back then, and it really inspired me and my brother because it showed us like it doesn't matter where you start off. Like, you can become successful as long as you can build yourself up from there. It doesn't matter where you start from. It's always a way to get up there. He was rock bottom, he's up here. He didn't have nowhere to stay. He didn't have parents who raised him or anything. Taught himself everything. That's the crazy part. And most people realize like some people think they can't get far without their parents, without their friends, without their soulmate and stuff like that, which I understand, because you want that side support. But he showed us that, you don't really need all that. His girlfriend came by his side and stuck by him to support him, which helped him a lot too. But I'm pretty sure he could have made it too, even if she wasn't around. So with that being said, like, you can always get where you want to be if you want to try. He's such an inspiration to me, my brothers, and even a couple of my friends who he talked to before. Because like, if you look at how my brother is now and the way he looks, the way he's living and all that, you would never, and I mean never, expected the things that he could have gone through to get to where he is now. He lives in such a beautiful house. He got a side business, which is detailing, and he actually learned that from YouTube. He got all like the professional kits and all that, and he was just booked every single day, every hour of the day, just cleaning cars constantly and doing like Amazon Prime, like a lot of the side jobs, like delivering stuff. That's what he was doing. And now his house is just building. It's so beautiful and everything, and I'm just in shock. I'm like, if he can do that, I can do that. And I mean, I'm not rock bottom or anything, but to get where he's at, he just showed me like, if he can do it, I can do it. And it'll also show people that they can do it too. It's just to never give up, to keep trying, no matter if you're stuck in like a terrible place. Like, if people are judging you, let them judge, because in the end, you might end up having a better life than the person that's judging you right now. And that's what he showed us. So because of that, my brother is probably one of the biggest inspiration I've ever met in my life. And I know for a fact that he will inspire so many people who might be struggling with life in general. Just looking at how he is right now and his story, a lot of people could probably relate to him, especially with not being raised by two parents and all that. But my dad did want to raise him. Like I said, the mom wanted to take over everything, and that didn't work out too well because the mental problems that she had could not help him. So yeah, no matter what, you can always get to the top. Just keep trying. Don't give up. Do your research and everything. You're gonna make it just like he did.